Does life have intrinsic value? And more specifically, does human life have value? And if so, why? If you're religious, you're probably thinking, well, duh, human life has value. That's a no-brainer. That's a given. That's non-controversial. But if you're atheist or agnostic, then that question is a lot harder to answer.
Then let me break it down for you.
Because if the Big Bang is the only reason that we're here, then aren't we just biological blobs of atoms that happen by chance?
Yes, essentially.
Who are we to think that the universe owes us one?
It doesn't, and quite frankly, the idea that the universe owes us one is ridiculous, no matter what.
With this worldview, the only value that exists is that which we ascribe to other things.
Or that we ascribe to ourselves, or that things have within themselves that don't require us socially ascribing, such as the ability of underwater plants to introduce oxygen into the water.
For example, my family is valuable to me.
Well, that contradicts your whole argument right there, because you just said that you ascribe value to your family. So the people in your family have value simply because you value them. While that is not an inherent value from a deity, that is a value.
My car is valuable to me. Things are only valuable because we, a random blob of atoms, say that they are.
Essentially, yes, in a lot of cases.
I mean, isn't that a bleak worldview?
Sure, it can be. What's your point?
I think this is why atheists have higher suicide rates than religious people.
Oh, you want to play that game? Look, if somebody is irreligious, they don't think, oh, my life's not worth anything, I might as well kill myself. No. Suicide is caused by a lot of things, mainly depression. Now, people who are religious can use their religion as a coping mechanism. Now, if you're not religious, then you don't have that coping mechanism, and you have a decreased chance of finding a mechanism that works.
Because without God, what is the meaning of human life in the grand scheme of the cosmos?
The meaning of human life really depends on your perspective of it. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, there's really no meaning at all. But that's only in one perspective. In an evolutionary perspective, the meaning of your life is to carry on offspring who have a good chance of surviving. Psychologically, the meaning of your life is to be happy, to have positive emotions, and to deal with stress. Socially, the meaning of your life would be to help others.
If we just originated from slime and apes, then how could subjective morality ever tell us that any form of human life is valuable at all?
Morality and the value of human life are two totally separate things, and in that, I do not understand what you're asking.
Why not kill elderly people, the sickly, the mentally disabled, babies in the womb?
Because, be it with a god or without, we do ascribe value to those lives. We have sympathy. We care about the well-being of others. Just because I'm atheist does not mean that I am a sociopath.
If you're like me, all of that sounds ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Of course human life has value. It's intuitive. It's in our instincts.
In your instincts? Because most of the instincts that we have because they were in the evolutionary advantage.
Evidence of that is the fact that we mourn the lives of both friends and strangers.
Because we have sympathy, and that's a basic emotion. Emotions can be explained without a god.
To go even further, if we didn't think that human life had value, we'd encourage everyone to commit suicide whenever they have a bad day.
No, we wouldn't, because that wouldn't make any sense. Let's say hypothetically that nobody's life has value. That doesn't mean that we should commit suicide. And that doesn't mean that you're justified in encouraging anybody to commit suicide. But that does mean that there's essentially nothing wrong with committing suicide. There's no reason to object to it. And I'd go so far as to say that in the reality that we live in today, if anybody does kill themselves, then while we should not want that to happen, they haven't done anything morally wrong. And it's their personal decision to do what they want with their life. But that doesn't mean that we should encourage that. In fact, we are obligated to discourage that, simply because we have sympathy.
All of that to say that if humans didn't have intrinsic value, we wouldn't behave the way that we behave. We act and live as though we have value because we have value.
But do we really need a god to be valuable? Here's my atheistic view on the matter. If there is no God, then we are not ensued value by a creator or a deity, but we do still have value. And the value that we have is that which we ascribe to ourselves and to others. I can think of myself as valuable simply because I exist, because I have consciousness, and because I have the potential to experience positive emotions. But I can also ascribe value to other people because I value having them around. And they can ascribe value to me because they value having me around, being whatever social interaction it is. So maybe the value that we have is simply self-regard and interpersonal relationships. And in that, it would be a psychosocial construct. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. But it does mean that it is possible for somebody to not have any worth. If somebody doesn't have any positive self-regard or any interpersonal relationships, then maybe they don't really have any value. And maybe they would be justified in committing suicide. Now, of course, that would be a bad thing. And I understand that that is a bleak way of looking at it. That can be a depressing thing to think. But that doesn't mean that it's not real. And yes, maybe we are just lonely little dots on a rock in the eternity of outer space. Maybe in the grand scheme of the cosmos, there's no real point. But that doesn't mean that we can't live full lives. That doesn't mean that we can't be happy now. And that doesn't mean that we are worthless. And it doesn't really mean that there is a God. But anyways, you can still have a wonderful day. Goodbye.